Today we're going to be talking about CSS positioning and the 4 attributes that you can add to it. We'll also be looking at it in terms of this real-world example here. So at the end of this video, you will know how to create a section like this for your website. So let's just go straight into it and understand exactly what CSS positioning is. CSS positioning has 4 attributes: static, fixed, relative, and absolute. There is a 5th attribute that works with CSS positioning, and that is the Z index, but we'll get into that soon. Let's dive deeper into each of these so we can understand exactly what they do. Static is the default attribute. This is what your elements are set to automatically. So even if you go in and you put your CSS position into static, absolutely nothing will change since this is the default. So here I am in VS Code, and this is the page. This is what it looks like right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add CSS positioning to this info section here, which is the section that has my header, my paragraph, and my button. Let's add a position of static and save, and you will see absolutely nothing changed because this is already the default of this element. So again, if I comment this out, nothing will change. So the position of static is default, and you adding it here won't do anything at all. The next position that we'll be looking at is fixed. Fixed is the position that will allow your elements to stay in one place on the page, and this is relative to your browser window, not your website. So once you set your element to fixed and you position it, it will be fixed to your browser window. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let me go ahead and add a position of fixed to this and hit save. And as you can see, the element itself is now outside of the container. So our container originally had the info card and the image, and by applying the position of fixed to the info card, it has now pulled it outside of the container and has positioned it relative to the browser window. Now it is in the center of the page right now because we have display of flex on the section and we have display of flex on the container here. But by default, when you add the position of fixed to an element, it will be at the top left corner relative to the browser window. So let me comment out this display of flex here and this one, and now you can see that it is relative to the top of the browser window. And from here, if I go back down to my info section, I can move this around. So I can say left by 250 pixels, and I'm moving that. And I can also do, let's push it down from the top by 500 pixels. And there we go. So you can move this around, and the most important part of the fixed property is that when you scroll, it stays in place. See? So because it is relative to the browser window and not the website, it is going to stay wherever you put it within your browser window. And that is all you really need to know about the fixed element. Next up, we have the relative positioning. The relative positioning is simply relative to its original position. So remember that the original position is static. So if you look at this dotted box here, this is the original position of the box. And when we change the position to relative, we are telling it to now move in the direction that I want to move you to relative to where you were. So in this example here, we have moved our box over to the right and up from the bottom. So this is where it was originally, and now we've moved it over here. Let's go ahead and look at the real world example of this. Back in VS Code for my info class, I'm going to go ahead and add the position of relative. And if I save, you can see that nothing has changed, but something did change. Let's move this away from the left by 120 pixels and from the bottom by 60 pixels. So now we have moved our card, and you can see that it doesn't affect the image at all. So we move the card relative to the position that it was at. So from its original position, we went from the left by 120 pixels and then from the bottom by 60 pixels to get exactly what we have here now. And finally, let's take a look at the absolute positioning. This is the attribute that a lot of persons don't really seem to understand well. It has two main features. One is that it completely removes the element from out of the natural order, and two is that it positions your element relative to either the website or the nearest ancestor that has a position attribute. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So the first thing you will notice is that absolute positioning completely removes the element from the order. So let's add the position of relative back here and hit save. You can see that nothing has changed here. We can go ahead and move this up, down, left, right, but the image stays where it is based on what we have set up in our HTML. Now, if I change the position attribute of this to absolute and hit save, immediately you can see that something happened. So this info class here has been pulled outside of this section. So right now, the only thing that is in the section is the image, and it is being centered by our flexbox. So now that the info section has been pulled out, it can be moved to anywhere you want it to go. Now that my element has been pulled outside of the natural order, I'm going to have to resize it, because now this width of 55% is the width based on my website, my viewport width. So if I rescale this, let's say I put it to 30%, you can see that the size of my box has now changed, and I can then start to move it around. Something really important that you need to know about this though is that, let's say I do left of 15 pixels. See what happens? It didn't move it 15 pixels from where it was. It moved it 15 pixels from the website window. So it pretty much overwrites what the flexbox was saying, and instead is saying, no, put this 15 pixels from the left. It's the same thing for the top. If I add a top of 15 pixels, you will see that it won't go 15 pixels from where it currently is. It will go 15 pixels from the top. See? And this only applies if it is that you have your elements in a container that you are displaying as flex, and you have used your justification and align items to set everything to the center of the page. If you want your element to be absolute but relative to a container that it is in, then you need to add the position attribute to that particular container, which is the ancestor of the current element that you're in. That sounds like a lot, but let me show you what I mean. So right now we are inside this info class here. This info class is within this section here, and this section is within this container. So if we want this info section here, which has the position of absolute, to be relative to either the section or the container, then we also need to give them the position element. So I want this info section here to be relative to our section container. So I'm going to scroll up. Here is my section class, and I'm going to give it the position of relative. And remember, the position of relative doesn't change anything for the section class because we're not adding any top, left, right, or bottom changes to it. So once I hit save, all that happens is that my info class down here is now relative to my section class. So what I can do from here is to move it however I like. So if I do left of 50 pixels, it will move it 50 pixels from the left of the section container because that is what it is relative to now. So remember, absolute positioning is relative to the website viewport width and height if there isn't an ancestor element that also has the position of relative. And because of this, you can also just go ahead and add the position of absolute to the image section here, and now you can move your image around as well. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to introduce z-index. So as soon as I added the position of absolute to the image here, you can see that it popped out and it is now on top of our info card. If I want the info card to be on top of the image, I have to move it up in the Z plane, which is up. So you have Y plane, which is top to bottom, X is from west to east, but then Z goes all the way up from there. So we're just going to use z-index and we're going to set that to 1 and hit save. And now our info card is on top of our image. From here, you can just go ahead and keep moving your images around. So I can say left of 400 pixel, and you keep moving things around until you're happy. For this example, I've added an extra element to our section here, which is an image. You can see it. It's the image of this healthy salmon dish, salmon salad. Now, we're going to go ahead and design this page using the position element. I'm going to remove this position relative from our section here. We don't need that anymore. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take this dish, the salmon salad, and I'm going to pull it out of the natural order by adding the position of absolute to it. So this is the class dish, so I just find the class and add the position of absolute. So now you can see that the salad has been pulled all the way out of the natural order. So this section here ideally only now contains the info class and the image class. From here, now I want to move my info section over a bit. So in my info class, I'm going to give it the position of relative. And I'm going to move it to the left by 120 pixels. And I'm going to move it from the bottom by 60 pixels. And there we go. So now I also want to move the dish down. So I'm going to move the dish down from the top by 60 pixels, and look at what's going to happen. See, when I move the dish down by 60 pixels, it's not moving down from the position that it was at, because this dish has a position element of absolute, but the section does not have a position element. The container does not have a position element. So this top of 60 pixels is applying directly to the website. If we want it to be positioned relative to our section container, which is denoted by this border here, we also have to give this section a position element, and we're going to give it the position of relative. And when I hit save, you can see that our dish is now moving down. So let me change this to 100. So it's moving down relative to the section element. So I'm going to move this down even further by 400 pixels. Maybe 400 is too much. Let's do 380. 350. Yeah. And I also want to move it from the left by 350 pixels. And there we go. So now you can see that our section has been changed to look really good. We have a dish, we have our info card and our image, and this is all done using just the positioning elements. So that is how you can use positioning in your website to create really unique sections and make your website look really good. If this video helped you in any way, please do subscribe to the channel. I'll be making a lot more like this. And also leave a comment letting me know what you think. You can ask any questions in the comment section as well, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So until next time, thank you for watching. Have a good day.